But I have some tips I want you to bear in mind when you're pruning. One, you have to consider your tools. You must always make sure you have clean tools. Sharpen, clean tools. You must always have gloves, because gloves to save your fingers and some of the tools may cut you. So you must always carry your gloves and things when you're doing the field and you're doing pruning, because some of the tools are small chainsaws and some of them are very sharp and they could easily cut you. The accident could take place. One of the things you have to consider is speed. When you're pruning, it's not something you have to just peep and make little cuts. If you have a lot to do, you will encourage you to prune, because you could always come back the next time and take out another 2 branches. So you take out your first set, you may take out your 2 leaves, and then you come back and another time, and so you try to keep moving all the time. Now, when you're dealing with trees like citrus and so forth, you always try to keep them at a manageable height. Try not to, because if you allow them to go too tall, all the cultural practices you may want to carry out, especially like harvesting and pruning, that's going to become very, very difficult. So consider that in mind. When you're pruning citrus trees, one of the things you have to look for is cross branches. You know, there are some branches that go across and cause problems. They could cause bruising, and water going to set away bruised and cause disease to the plant. So you have to make sure that you remove these kind of branches and those cross branches. Another set of branches you have to remove is the low lying ones, those that line very low to the ground, because one, they could, by splashing, they could pick up disease and cause you to lose your crop, especially for things like tomato and so forth. Even citrus and mangoes, if you allow them to touch the ground or to be too low, you're going to lose a lot of fruits, and disease could affect you too. Shape. Now, you have to remember that where the sun coming from, where the light, where you're getting your light. So you have to shape the tree in a particular way so that light and air will be able to go through quite easily. When you have young citrus in particular, and mangoes and other tree crops, you must let them grow at a certain height, manageable height, because if you cut too much, if you prune too heavy, the plants, it could affect the plant. So you allow them to grow, make some bush and thing, and then you shape them. You allow them to grow at a certain height that you could manage, because manageable height does not mean always where your hand could reach. Because there are some crops you may have to use things like your coconut knife. Manageable height depends on the crop and the kind of market you have, because there are some crops you need to reach them with your hand. You must have to be able to access them quite easily. In the young plants, especially those young grafted and budded plants, you have to make sure that after you plant them out, maybe after a year, you go back to them and remove all the suckers you see, every sucker you see. Suckers tend to take up all the moisture, they take up all the food, and they would kill the plant. Some suckers tend to kill the plant after a time, because if the sucker grow below the bud or the scion, what you would find, the sucker has had a tendency to grow faster. That's why you see sometimes people go to the scheme and they buy a plant, and then a few years after they say they're not with a ghost poo.
Yes.
And they argue with you and tell you, man, it's a ghost poo I buy. But after they put the plant there, they leave it like grow, and they never went back there and do some little pruning so that the plant, they could remove all the suckers and so forth from the plant. Now, removing sucker, you can do that all the time. Throughout the year, you always visit the plant, you see a sucker coming, you just clip it out. When to prune? Because usually you don't prune any time. One other thing you have to consider is when the plant is dormant, when there is hardly any growth taking place in the plant. When you realize that the plant hardly sending out new shoots and flowers and so forth, it's about the best time to prune. Now you try not to prune in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the dry season, and everybody know why. If you prune and you prune deep in the middle of this dry season, that go bleed the plant a lot. Go take away a lot of moisture and cause the plant to suffocate, sometimes die. So those are some of the tips that you have to consider before you prune a tree. Mulching is part of the whole thing to keep the moisture, because after you prune the plant, pruning is like a small surgery. You know, it's like when somebody go and do a little surgery and they need to recover, you have to give them a lot of water, a lot of care. So after you prune a tree, a young tree in particular, you must try to make sure that you do a little mulching.